So America's dad, Bernie Sanders, did basically an impromptu town hall on the issue of Medicare for all in the streets of Burlington, Vermont. So this wasn't like this was planned and they were like, all right, I need everybody to come and line up, stand around me in a circle and we're going to talk about all this stuff. This just happened organically, which is kind of awesome. Take a look.
That healthcare is a human right and not a privilege. Yes. Should we expand Medicare to cover every man, woman, and child in this country? Does that make sense to people?
Yes.
Yes.
We're asking people whether they think healthcare is a human right. What do you think?
I think it's a human right.
Okay, let's walk up the street. All right, let's do it.
And look.
Oh my gosh. All right. Right now, we got 83 million Americans in this country who have either no health insurance or they're underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments.
My dad's girlfriend just broke both her arms and she's currently uninsured, and so that's...
And what does that mean? She ran up a big bill?
Oh, huge bill.
Come on up.
I have a coworker who's been paying off like a emergency appendectomy for the past 4 years.
Come on up here. Okay.
I had a patient who was working, not
Your
making
physician?
a lot of money, family
Okay.
medicine, and he developed a lump, turned out to be testicular cancer. So at that point, he ended up having to get treatment done. When he finished the treatment, he was recommended to get regular follow-ups, but then he was facing a choice. If he went back to work as a mechanic, he lost his health insurance. And if he didn't work, he could maintain his health insurance, but then he had no money to live on. So he ended up having to go back to work, lost his health insurance, didn't do follow-ups. A year later comes in with a new mass in his groin that's now recurrent testicular cancer, which wasn't caught because he didn't do the routine follow-ups. Now he has to stop work again, goes back on Medicaid, now costs the healthcare system a huge amount more money than if he had been caught early on for a very treatable type of cancer.
Do you find that to be a common occurrence, that because people lack the quality insurance or the money that they need, we end up spending more than we should if they simply walk into it?
People don't go to the doctor, even co-pays that we don't consider to be a big deal.
So if you don't have
if you
much
have
money,
$1,000 deductible, $300, $400, $500. That's a lot of money.
who wants to talk about that for a minute? We got any Canadians here? Yeah. All right, Canadians. Come on up. Let's go. Congratulations, you're on TV. Great. All right, talk about. All right, am I correct in saying that if God forbid you had a serious illness, you went into the hospital, you would be treated and come out without any bills at all?
Zero.
Okay. Do you know people who have been in that experience, that situation?
Unfortunately, yes.
Talk a little bit about that, if you
Well,
could.
basically, my mother, she had her arm broken. Actually, it happened in Florida. And in Florida, it was going to cost her, I think, $40,000 or $50,000 because I don't have that kind of money. Came back to Montreal, $0.
Would only imagine that struggling with leukemia for 10 years was a very expensive process, yes?
But it cost us zero. But it would have cost us a lot, maybe put our whole family in danger or in debt here. But in Canada, I was able to know my father 10 years more because of this pill, and I'm grateful for it. But I'm also grateful for our system in Canada where everybody pays a little bit. But at the end of the line, stories like mine, there's a bunch of them.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other Canadians with us? Anybody else? All right. All right, a German citizen. What do you think? All right. You're not 60 miles away, but we're delighted you're here. All right. What is the experience in Germany? If somebody ends up in the hospital with a serious illness, how much in debt are they when they come out?
It gets paid by the state.
What we are talking about is a dysfunctional healthcare system which is not designed, as is the case in other countries, to provide quality care to all people in a cost-effective way. What is the function of the current healthcare system in America? What's the main function?
Cha-ching.
What is that?
Make as much money as you can.
That's right. We got to stand up to the drug companies. We got to stand up to the insurance companies. And when we do, sooner than later, every man, woman, and child in this country will finally have health care as a human right.
Make this man president. Gotta make him president. He really cares about this stuff. I mean, it's just so obvious. Everything he does is built around trying to get the policy issues he cares deeply about implemented. He wants to raise awareness on these issues. He wants to explain to people why it's the way to go. He wants to, make the numbers overwhelming in the general public in support of these ideas, and then he wants to get them done. He's just, Bernie is like quite literally just wandering around the streets, convincing people to support Medicare for all and talking to people about their healthcare horror stories. I mean, that's such a Bernie thing. It's like he's wandering the street. Hey, can I talk to you about Medicare for all? Are you okay with that? It's beautiful. So, what you'll notice there is most of the people already agree with him. So, it's pretty... I mean, you could say, hey, the selection, it was like a self-selection, because it's not like you have far right-wing people who are going to stop and talk to Bernie, or not many of them that would do that. And maybe that's true, to be fair. Maybe that's true. But it is also true that the poll numbers show it's an overwhelming majority of the American people that support Medicare for all. In some polls, it's up to 70%. It's a majority of independents. It's a majority of Democrats. In one poll, it's even a plurality of Republicans, more Republicans supporting Medicare for all than not supporting Medicare for all. So it really is... It's one of those issues where it is such a political winner for us, and isn't it so infuriating that the media portrays it as the exact opposite? Like, oh, if the Democrats run on Medicare for all, they're sure done. What are you talking about? That is the opposite of what the empirical data says. It's like the only reason mainstream media hires the people they hire is because they know that those people will continue with the, conventional wisdom nonsense, and they will ignore the data. And that's why they're in the positions that they're in. At least that's the sense I get. That's why you put somebody like Wolf Blitzer on TV, because he's going to bore everybody to death, and he's going to say exactly what the corporations want him to say, exactly what the establishment wants him to say. And it's not nefarious, it's that he genuinely is that kind of a person. Whatever, the people around him are saying, he'll adopt it. And so it's like when he spoke to Rand Paul, and Rand Paul was like, we should stop arming Saudi Arabia because they're killing babies. And he was like, well, what about the defense contractors and their profits? What? So this is, what strikes me about this? And you'll notice this too. So if you're talking to somebody who's on the right and they're against Medicare for all, what you'll notice is if they personally experience a situation like we have all the time in this country with our healthcare system, you can get them to understand the left-wing position and agree with the left-wing position. So it's like, yeah, everything was fine and dandy, and I loved our healthcare system until, my dad got sick, or my mom got sick, or my friend got sick, and they couldn't afford the treatment, and they went bankrupt. Or they had trouble, they couldn't leave their job, or they had to get a new job, or whatever it might be. Everybody kind of gets the Medicare for all position and why it's the best thing when they have a personal, terrible experience with our healthcare system. And you could say that's anecdotal, but I would argue when you take, a million different anecdotal stories, all of a sudden it's not just anecdotal, it's a trend, and it's the objective reality of it. So in this country, medical bills is one of the top causes of bankruptcy. That doesn't happen in other developed nations. That's not a thing. That's huge in and of itself. Like you guys hear me say all the time, 30 to 45,000 Americans die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. My dad was one of those people pretty much. 30 to 40 million uninsured people. Skyrocketing copays and premiums and deductibles. Wouldn't it be awesome if it was just free at the point of service and is paid for with taxes and you still net save money because we eliminate the private taxes, which are way more expensive, and you get better care? So again, you'll notice it, man. You really will. People will, even right-wingers who disagree with Medicare for all, once this terrible system personally impacts them, they go, oh, yeah, well, I was wrong. I would love free healthcare for us, for me, for my family, for my mom, for my dad, for my friend, but I wasn't able to really conceptualize it when it was somebody else's problem. Now that it's my problem, yeah, I see the wisdom of it. So listen, it's never too late to change your mind. It's never too late to be correct about something. It's never too late to educate yourself further. And I would implore anybody who doesn't already support Medicare for All to just, do some reading on it, do the research on it. Go look at the Commonwealth Fund study, for example, which found that the U.S. ranks 11th out of 11 in the developed countries when it comes to the healthcare system. Go look at the methodology and see how rigorous these studies are that say that we're like the worst. It's almost like I just want to thank Bernie. Because this is a dude who really cares. He's running on the issues that matter. And it's inspiring. I have to say, it really is inspiring. How passionate he is to try to get everybody in this country healthcare, how hard he's working. The dude doesn't rest. And I know that, I know some people who are in the campaign, and they're like, everybody around Bernie always tries to get him to rest. And he's like, no, we got work to do. This is what this dude is all about. And this is why this dude needs to be president.